Mhm.
Welcome to Essential Leadership Skills, a discussion with TEDx and TED Talk speakers. Our guest today is Dr. Margaret Moodian. Dr. Moodian is a tutorial assistant professor of humanities and social sciences at Brandman University. She has developed several courses in her role, and she serves on the Program Council and Brandman Alumni Association board as a faculty representative. Additionally, she sits on doctoral dissertation committees. She also serves as vice president on the board of TS Arms, an Orange County, California-based nonprofit dedicated to assisting children affected by HIV and AIDS in South Africa. Pepperdine University selected her as 40 Under 40 honoree in 2016. She speaks to members of the Greek community around the country about leadership and self-esteem. Please join Director of Operations Glenn Daniels and Dr. Margaret Moodian, Vice President of TS Arms.
This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Good morning, everyone. And you know my rule. It doesn't matter what time zone you're in. It's always morning time someplace. I'll just say good morning. And we'll say good morning to our guests. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Glenn. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. As I sat through your TED Talk, I started realizing what you're doing is making a huge difference. And I think our leadership team heard it with the same things. And that's something we might can get behind, or other organizations get behind. But I want to talk to you about your TED Talk, about a couple of things. But before we dive in, my first question: what is unique or powerful about yourself or your TEDx or your organization? What's unique or powerful that maybe people just miss?
Yeah, what's unique about TS Arms and why I align with it is what you might not realize is that TS Arms is a nonprofit that assists children affected by HIV and AIDS in South Africa. But it was founded by a nurse at a local hospital 20 years ago. And realized she was a nurse that might not seem like such a big role. She did something incredible by creating a nonprofit. And that just goes to show that aligns with my values. No matter who you are or where you are, you have something to give back, and there's ways to create opportunities and make things happen.
I'm going to ask you this question now, even though we're not quite in this segment, because of what you said. It was established 20 years ago to help with HIV and AIDS. How much did it shift with COVID?
How much did the organizations?
Yeah, your mission, did it shift because of COVID, or are you still working with HIV and AIDS?
That's a really good question. So the population we serve hasn't changed all that much, but just recently there's been some real devastation with COVID over there due to a lack of access to the vaccine. So some of our grantees have been going out into the community and feeding individuals that are having a really difficult time. With the lack of vaccines over there, there's a lot of poverty and people are stuck, sometimes 10 people in a small hut, which is leading to child abuse and even worse things. And so we recently sent out a plea to our donors and corporations that we needed help to assist them, government leaders as well. And so it's been really heartwarming and inspiring. This is very sad what's happening. It makes me really excited that there are a lot of good people out there that are giving. We've raised tens of thousands of dollars with this plea to help people that are having a hard time due to the quarantine and all that. So there are a lot of good people out there, and that's been giving me some hope.
Okay, perfect. Now we're going to get more into that here, but I'm going to go back to my format kind of question for you.
Yeah.
And because you just did this, it should be fresh in your mind. Can you tell us what the journey was like for you from the time you gave the idea of what you wanted to speak about, from the time you invited to the day you got on stage? What was that journey like for you?
That's a wonderful question, Glenn. So during COVID, we focused on raising money for our nonprofit and finding ways to bring it forward with advocacy. So really we were creating the TED Talk during COVID by going out into the community and doing things to help. So I got this email from Brandman University where I work, and it said that they were having a TED conference and to submit video and application if we were interested in speaking. And I didn't know if I had much of a chance. And then I just at the last minute decided, you know what? I'm going to go for it. Along the lines of, Glenn, I know you go out there and make things happen. And so I figured this is an opportunity. I have to just try and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So at the last minute, I came up with a video to submit, and I think it was meant to be because I was reflecting upon everything that had happened during COVID, and it just poured out of me, this video and application. And the power of Pen Pal Connections, the name just came to me and it worked. So how often does that happen where it's just you say it and it works out? So I submitted my application and they got back to me and said I had been accepted to talk in this TED Talk. And I was really excited about the opportunity. When you're a high achiever, you go for a lot of different things. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But when they do, it's really exciting. So I wrote out the TED Talk right away. It was a kind of a healing experience through everything we went through during COVID, talking about what happened, the ups and the downs, and how we created this Pen Pal program through our advocacy work for TS Arms, how we had raised money and all the connections in my life. I talked about the school district cultural proficiency task force, and then the Pen Pal program. We're working with Congress member Mike Levin's office, and just how things came together and went into this Pen Pal program. And I was feeling down at the time when I was going to give my talk because I'd come up with this Pen Pal program, and just with the situation in South Africa, it wasn't going quite as strong as I had hoped. But I had befriended the former ambassador of South Africa, Eric Voss, and I asked for his help with the Pen Pal program, and he hadn't gotten back to me. And it was the darndest thing. Right before I was about to give my TED Talk, the ambassador called me and said he had some connections for me to help grow this Pen Pal program. And I thought that was so serendipitous. Here I was feeling a little down about the situation, and this ambassador that is wonderful called me and he said, I always follow through with my word. And I told you I would help you with this program. And so I'm calling to help. And that just gave me a little boost for my talk. And went in there, and I'll tell you, I don't know how your experience was. The day of the TED Talk was an absolutely fun time.
Wow.
The air, we couldn't speak to a full audience. There were just members of the people that organized the conference in the audience due to COVID.
Yes.
So it's kind of we're vaccinated, we're ready to get out there. All the speakers and I were really excited, great energy around, and going up there and giving my TED Talk felt really good. I haven't always been able to speak. I started out my career in marketing and then got my doctorate and became a professor. And when you realize how much you've grown and when you're able to do things you weren't once able to do, it's pretty exciting. So if you're thinking about doing a TED Talk, I highly recommend it.
Okay, now I'm going to have to toss this out because you are extremely lucky. Most people who do TED Talks, they could take a wall in one of their houses or office and wall it with all the rejection notices. You have to apply to quite a few of them. While you applied to one and got one. Most of the time, 50, 60 of them before you get one yes or no. But you got one. And then, make matters worse, you had an easy day. Something's wrong. So maybe we should live with you and get some of your good luck. when you interview people, you hear all kinds of things like we were booked into a 50,000 seat arena and only 5 people showed up. That makes a nerve wracking talk that day. And this was well before the pandemic. So it's just like no reason for that except for they didn't promote it. But anyway, so just count your blessings. That was great. I like the name though that you gave this, the power of a pen pal connections. Growing up, I always thought about I had a pen pal and actually was a neighbor. We would just write quick notes and talk about Batman on TV. When you chose that name, what made you pick that name out? I know it was serendipitous for a lot of different things, but what caused you to say, okay, that's what we're going to do?
Yeah, I am like you, Glenn. You go out there and make things happen for your leadership consulting business. You came up with this brilliant idea of interviewing TED speakers, and you're reaching out, connecting, and making things happen. And that's the basis of my TED Talk. We started to advocate for TSARMs, and Congressmember Mike Levin's office, they helped us with this program. They encouraged us to do it. And that in and of itself, just the fact that someone was able to help, and there's was someone good who encouraged us and saw some hope and excitement in it. And different things I'm involved with, such as the school district and my sorority with the book club and the book I Will Always Write Back. It's just there were all these connections that came together for this pen pal program. And with the situation in South Africa, this program might not really get off the ground right now. It might later. And I've done a lot of deep thinking about this because I am a high achiever and I like to make things happen. And I always like to finish or excel at what I start at. But I'm coming to
Mm-hmm.
realize that sometimes in life we think we're doing something for one reason, but really it's another. And
Right.
so this pen pal program might not right now be giving me exactly what I thought I needed, but it's giving me a platform to advocate for TSARMs and South Africa as a country that's having such a hard time due to the lack of vaccines. And if I can make a difference with advocating for that, then there's some power in the pen pal connection there to your question.
There is some power there. I guess what I'm also thinking about is that TS started out dealing with HIV and AIDS. The pen pal connection feels like to me, and I think when I heard it, you talk about it in your TED talk, it feels like you're saying, okay, fifth grader to fifth grader, let's write letters back and forth. Let's connect with each other. Let's talk through each other's problems. Let's find a way to connect. That seems to be a different mission than what TS started out with.
Okay, that's a good question, Glenn. But actually, the first batch of students that were connecting, one was our grantee Hokisa, which helps students in that population. So the students were actually interacting with our grantees. And so that was, in a way, advocating for the people we're helping. So there was a connection there.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
So, so
Alrighty, so there's built-in connection already set in place. This wasn't a question until just a minute ago. How did you set up? How were you able to connect with a congressperson to help you out?
that's a great question. So we decided to form an advocacy committee. And so we began reaching out to local representatives, as I talked about in my talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just starts with filling out the form online at the Congress member's office. I reached out to others as well, and we got meetings with them. And so you fill out the form, and then they write you back and set up a meeting with folks in the office and to go from there. And I'm actually going to be having a seminar on this with my students, them to advocate on issues that are important to them. And my husband is also pretty connected within the Orange County community. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of helped us as well garner that connection. But really just got to go out there. And what I've come to realize on this journey with the people I've been working with in these congressional offices and with the ambassador, there's some really wonderful people that work
Mm,
in our government. A lot of times with the news, we hear all these negative things, but there are really some incredible people. And a lot of times, like the ambassador, they get to where they are because they work their tails off and they're
right.
really good people that do amazing things. The ambassador started PEPFAR, which provides assistance with HIV and AIDS around the world. Back to your point about how we started this advocacy, but also it's made me come to realize that there are some just incredible people in our government. And also, I've been connecting with a woman who is a special assistant to President Biden. Her name is Dana Banks, and she's talking about how they're building infrastructure to manufacture the vaccine in South Africa. So I think with the news, we don't hear a lot of the good things because I guess that doesn't
And sell commercial space.
sell commercials. It doesn't get
Yeah.
people a tweet, but there's so much good happening. And I wish people would pay attention to that as well.
And so much good happening. And then even when some of the sad things take place, it creates good. I guess let me just ask, since I'm thinking about that, you talked in your TED talk about how your son became an angry person and how disappointed you became on January 6th. For those two events, how do they help you to connect with the audience at the TED Talk and connect with your grantees right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we connect through adversity, right?
Mm,
And there's pain in life and there's joy in life. And we connect with others by sharing what we are going through or what we have been through.
okay.
When you can find commonalities, when
Uh-huh.
when someone shares something with you that they have been through and you've been through something similar and you can empathize with them, you realize you understand what's happening, then there's a real connection there. And so by sharing what happened with the school being shut down and my son really having a hard time with that, and also what happened on January 6th when people stormed the US Capitol, those were some really dark times. And so by sharing that and by reflecting upon that was a healing experience for me. We don't want to forget things like that have happened. My son is in a much better place now, and it makes me realize we've gone through that, we've overcome that. And with January 6th, hopefully we're going towards a better route now. And so I was hoping to connect with the audience because we all went through that together. And so I think that those connections can help bring us together and move us forward to a better place.
I'm betting though, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm betting that you got more comments about your son's struggles than you got about the January 6th episode. Both of them were horrendous because the son's very personal, but the January 6th, I think, I'm sure there's a lot of people who align with your disgust about that date. But did you get more about your son? Did more people say, man, that's my kid too?
Nobody really commented on either.
Mm,
I have a psychology master's, and when we talk about therapy, we talk about the process rather than the content.
yeah.
And it's that was an interesting question you asked because when people responded to me, they resonated with the message of going out and
Mm.
making things happen and giving back rather than what the details of the talk were.
You
So,
took us there
what's that?
because you took us there. I just realized that, yeah, I connected with my 3-year-old grandson and yours. But then I realize now that you took us to the point where we're going to get to in our conversation, but go do something. And you'd get, so that makes, yeah. Now that I think about it, that because that's exactly what happened. Is I'm sitting there thinking, geez, my grandson. But now I know there's action to be done. You took us there, so that's powerful. I do want to be aware of the time, but I do want to ask you something else that's not quite overly related to the TEDx. You mentioned during the TEDx that during the pandemic, you went to a Zoom base for fundraising and raised more funds. How did that happen? Why do you think that happened?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us that have been through a lot of adversity, a lot of people, me included on our board, that have been through a lot. So it's funny, during COVID, we became more creative and it brought us together as a board to be more of a team. And we were laser focused on our grantees and the fact that we could not let them down during this time. People were saying nonprofits are going to lose money and nonprofits can't help during this time and this is just going to be devastating to nonprofits. And we're just saying to ourselves, no, we're going to help them, we're going to help them even more. And so we came up with the idea of delivering boxes to our donors and having a Zoom fundraiser rather than in person. And so our first fundraiser was a tea party. So we delivered a tea box.
Oh,
Yeah, so we had those wonderful teas and spoons and all these neat things in this box. And then our grantees were invited to come on the Zoom call. So the donors got to interact with our grantees and hear their stories and hear what they're going through. Another benefit of going on Zoom was that we could reach people we hadn't otherwise before. Originally,
mm,
when we had it in person, it could only be people in Orange County, but now we could reach people all over the world. So we had people around the world interacting with our grantees, which was so powerful. And so we did well and have been able to continue to support our grantees, which has been really good because they need the help. Yeah.
wow. I got to tell you, because I hear so much of the opposite. During COVID, the funding went away. People weren't going to donate so we lost a lot of ground. You come from a different perspective, is a more powerful perspective of saying, yeah, we now have the ability to connect with everybody around the world. And you did more. You gave first. That's powerful. That's a really good place to be. And I'm glad it took a moment for you to discuss that and share that, because that's a very powerful lesson. You have the ability to get people around the world. During your talk, though, you made this point, and I want you to share with us why and how valuable it is. The value of reaching out to make new connections. What is that?
Glenn, you are an expert at this. I just think it's so neat that you reached out to me. As I mentioned, you came up with this brilliant idea of interviewing TED speakers. And I think we come from the same mindset.
Yeah.
And so I was doing some deep reflection this morning. And our culture, a lot of times, is so focused on celebrities that are on reality TV shows and what's the latest TV show, and not reaching out and creating opportunities within the community to do good. And I want to encourage people to get out of their houses, make new connections, make things happen, especially to do good within the community. Why not value how we can make an impact and
Mm,
change our communities for the better rather
mhm.
than who has the most plastic surgery or who has the fanciest car? It's just, I wish that more people in our culture valued doing good rather than a competition to who can go to space.
Real fast.
It's just, so life is a lot richer when we go out into the community and we come together and give back. One can give back. Anyone. My son is in a special program in the district, and there are some children that are not as high functioning as he is. And a lot of times he'll take them under his wing and help them. And that's the prime illustration of how anyone can do good. You might say to yourself, I'm not a millionaire, so I'm not able to donate a lot, but you can do something. And the more you give back, the more you get back. And I've found that to be extremely important.
Let me ask, because I'm curious about something that you, and I'll let this go here in the background, but you made me think about this just now. And as give back, but maybe sometimes it's giving first, but giving back, your son does it, my grandson does it. I remember my daughter does it, or does do it now. Something as simple as just giving a smile to somebody, even though you may not have a dollar to donate to them, just give them a smile and wish them a good day. That's a give back, right? And you think that's, if we all just decide, okay, one person who's on the side of the street asking for money, we probably may not have change. That's the thing. Personally, I don't carry cash with me. Can't always give something to people, but a smile helps, I think, just giving back. And I think that's what you're pointing to. Am I misinterpreting? Am I making it too simple? Or
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The energy we give to other people can make or break their day, and in turn can affect their families, the people they interact with. I don't want to sound cheesy, but it's so true. Even a smile can make a significant impact on someone's day. You never know how you treat someone and how in turn that will change their day. You know, the ambassador, when he called me and he was so kind, that changed how I felt about the TED Talk. And
that's a
we're
powerful story.
grateful for that. And that was just a phone call, nothing off his back. And so the little things we can do can have a big impact.
That was, when you told that story, that kind of just really set home with me. Said, that ambassador who called you back to say, hey, I promise, I told you I'd do it. You're like, great. That just changed your whole demeanor for the rest of that day. I think you said a key word there, though, energy. When you give good energy to somebody, you can't tell what's it going to do.
Absolutely.
You can't tell. You and I are going to be preaching to the choir here, I hope. But you talk about this idea of not being afraid to go on a new project. Expand that out a little bit. To get started on a new project, tell me why you say you shouldn't be afraid of that. You should be cautious, and it doesn't sound like you even saying you should be cautious. Just go do it. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, let me think about that. With this pen pal, I recently took a personality test, and it said I'm a promoter. So what goes along with that is that I think of ideas and I'll just implement them. We said, we'll do this pen pal program and figure out a way to make it happen. But also at the promoter, there is the connections you have. So I value creating meaningful relationships and having connections throughout the community. And so we thought about this pen pal program, and I knew we could make something happen. And I connected with the school district, and so we thought of this. The wonderful lady I work with that is in the school district, she said there's this online platform called Flipgrid, and we can have the students on there, and it worked. We connected the two, and it worked. If you're going forward with something and you have good intentions, you do it to create good within the community, it's difficult to go wrong. And whether you know what, another example of someone recently who's embarked on something new is exciting is my friend, Dr. Shandell Maxwell. I sat on her doctoral dissertation, And she is another example of someone who embarks on new opportunities. She works for veterinarians doing leadership training, but she also is a singer, so she embarks on musical projects. And she just started this double Dutch club in the Inland Empire for women over 40 and over.
Oh, wow.
And they get together, have a blast, and they're all exercising, doing jump rope. It's a
This-
cool thing. So I love seeing that, and I want to see more of it.
That's so funny, double Dutch. I remember doing that or trying to do it. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to do it. So it sounds like, though, when you get an ideal and you just put it into play, it sounds like you're kind of saying, I have an ideal, I'm going to make it work. And then the answers just show up for you. You don't really struggle to get the answers to the questions, they just show up. Would that be accurate?
You got it. It's like a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
All the puzzle pieces together. And
Okay.
I have to make this happen. I know people, and this would work here and that would work there. And sometimes I think there's got to be some sort of spiritual aspect. I don't know, because I was working on this pen pal program, and then we read the book I Will Always Write Back at the same time about a pen pal relationship with someone in
Yeah.
Zimbabwe. And that was just so serendipitous. Is this just a coincidence? I don't know. It just, things like that happen, and you have to wonder.
I was going to ask you about this, and you reminded me, I Will Always Write Back. A great book to read. What other books would you recommend?
I just finished with that book club the Melinda Gates Moment of Lift book.
Oh.
And it's really heavy. So I realize that the books I enjoy reading, a lot of people might not like as heavy books, but I
You're
like
a professor. What do you expect?
I like to be well informed,
Yeah.
and I like to find ways to do good within the scope of what we have. And Melinda Gates is a prime example of someone that has means and is doing a lot of good with that. And she goes on a lot of dark topics in the book, worldwide,
Mm.
young brides and other things they do to women that aren't
That are not right.
they're not right. But in the end, she has a message that says if you want to make a difference, one thing you can do is to look for women in your organization that are not as far along as you and tap them for opportunities. And so I've started doing that within my university. And it is a good feeling to give back and provide opportunities for others. I know when people in administration or other places do that for me, I'm extremely grateful, and I never forget that. And I do the best I can because I realize they're investing in me. And so I realize when you find good people that are trying to make a place in the organization and make an impact on the world, if you can empower them, make a difference. So I took what Melinda Gates said to heart, and I've been acting upon that. Really important and makes a difference. I also read Sonia Sotomayor's autobiography, The Supreme Court Justice.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've read that. She's an incredible woman, and she came from such poverty and worked her tail off, and is such an incredible voice on the Supreme Court. And I love it's so hard for women to make it to those levels, and to read
Yeah.
about what they did, the hard work they did to get there. And also, she's a prime example of having created a lot of connections and having those help her move forward. Those are the kind of books I'm into. I know they're not for everyone, but I really enjoy them.
They are for everybody. If I think Well, you can decide, but I think I want to go read the autobiography for sure. I want to read that one for sure. I think that's going to be a great book to read about the autobiography. Again, we could talk well past your time, but I want to just ask you this. How are you helping people right now? Now, in the introduction, Amy mentioned you're working with in the Greek community and going out and teaching leadership and self-esteem skills. What are you doing right now that was maybe you're doing before the TED Talk or spawned as a result of the TED Talk, but what are you doing right now to help people?
That's the really neat thing about being a professor is I get paid to help people.
Ah,
It's pretty neat when you think about it. It's my job to make sure people do well in their education and in their professional lives.
hmm,
So every day I give advice to people on how they can do well in their jobs, how they can create opportunities within their organizations. I teach information literacy, and I in those I have research project, and some of these
hmm,
students are adult learners who have never thought much outside the box or
but now,
been given opportunities to think about ways they can make an impact, and getting those wheels to turn and think about what they can research to find more about a topic that they're interested in is a really neat thing to watch. I ask a lot of questions. You probably do this with your leadership consulting. What's interesting to you? What is going on in your life that you might like to see a change with? What are some ways you'd like to see your organization change, or what are some ways you would like to grow within your organization? Those are some questions we'll ask to help our students excel. So I've seen some neat projects come out of those. We have so much going
yeah,
on with the police in our country. And I'm seeing police chiefs that are creating DEI strategies within their departments. They're looking at organizational and cultural change. This is all happening with the education they're receiving. And again, we're not seeing this in the news because that doesn't
yeah,
sell the ad space, like you were saying, but
yeah,
there are a lot of good people trying to make a difference, and education is a prime spot for those changes to happen. I also spoke with a student who was based in Germany, who's in the armed forces,
hmm,
and he saw that the minority individuals within his group were being punished at a much higher rate than their white peers. And he really took issue with that, as he should. And so, with his project, he was finding a way to create a group so that he could change those policies and make people aware of what was going on and figuring out ways to change that. So these are some exciting projects I get to work on as a professor. I obviously don't get to take a lot of credit for it, but I can help facilitate the process and see the change enacted, which is really exciting. So that's one way I get to
yeah,
make a difference. And so obviously I love my job and I love my students, and it's quite an honor to be able to do this work. I also sit on the doctoral dissertation committee
yeah,
and love that work. Similar to my teaching, one of my students right now, she sits on a school board and is creating initiatives to enhance the diversity training within her community on a whole school district. How neat is that? She's making a significant impact with that. Another is a math teacher who is figuring out ways to help teach math in a way that people love it. She realizes that a lot of women don't get ahead in math because they're socialized, that they're not able to
to learn it. Yeah,
learn it. And so she's finding ways to change that so there can be more women that are adept at math. So These students are doing incredible work.
You're kind of like that rock you throw into a pond, a clear pond, and how it ripples out. Because all those things that you just said were created by you making the difference, making a change in people's life. So that's will always continue. I gather just from the type of person you are, and I thank you for that up front. That it's you that's creating all these changes. I want to ask you though, how
Thank
did
you
this
so much for
TEDx?
then I can say the same about you, just having gotten to know you. So
Well, I think that's a good mission. But now here's my question for you: how did this TEDx change your business or your life? How did it change it for you?
you think about that.
And it's new. This May 11th, that's just 2 months ago. May, June, July. Yeah, it's just 2 months ago. Have you felt a change at all?
Yes, the main I think the main answer to that is it's given me an opportunity to speak about TS Arms. I've given exposure to TS Arms, which if I can get the word out about our nonprofit and to help others with that, I guess that's one change, gone one step further in helping our mission. Also, it's given me more confidence. It was such a wonderful experience, and having gone through that has
Mm,
really helped me grow as an individual. I would recommend it to anyone that wants to do it. It's a really cool experience I'll never forget. So I got a great memory out of it, made some wonderful connections with all the other TED speakers. We're also empowering of each other. It's interesting. We talk about the power of connections.
yeah.
There was another woman who had been accepted for the TED Talk, who's a student at Brandman,
Mm,
and she's in a master's program for psychology. And she, being of the same mindset as I am, she saw my biography and she realized that we were from the same sorority, Delta Gamma. And so she reached out to me and we spoke before the talk and how our sorority had impacted our lives. And we shared tips for giving the TED Talk. And
yeah.
so just the camaraderie and the excitement was such a cool experience. And also, Glenn, I think one of the most exciting things is that you reached out to me for this interview. So thank you for that.
You're more than welcome for that. When you're making a difference, this is a part, the TS Arms is just making a huge difference. I think people also can see that your mindset is let's get things done. And I can pull the puzzle pieces together to get things done. And I think that inspires a lot of people. I want to know from you though, how is the best way for people to reach you to put themselves involved with the TS Arms? What's the best way? Is it through the LinkedIn address that we have? I think it's right here for us to see. Let's see. Is it through LinkedIn or you have a Hotmail address? Where do you prefer for them to reach out to you at?
LinkedIn is a great way to reach out. Feel free to reach out to me through my LinkedIn. My TS Arms email address is margaret@tsarms.com. But
Okay.
really, LinkedIn is the best way. Love to be connected through there. I connected with you through there. Such a great space. And also, you can go to tsarms.org, and
Hmm.
there's ways to help give back and connect with the board through there as well. So, really, I think 93% of the donations we go to our grantees. We're
Wow.
a purely volunteer based organization. All of the board members and volunteers do a lot of work from the goodness of our heart. Just because we believe in our mission, we realize that our grantees need us. And for the most part, we put our egos aside and focus on what needs to be done. And our founder always says it's for the children, and we're always focused on that. Our president, Anita Lampel, is an incredible leader. She is always in touch with our grantees. We always know what's going on. She is so dedicated and gives her time and finances as well. It's the most incredible, one of the most incredible groups of people I've ever worked with. And I don't think that's very common.
No, first thing, my limited knowledge of it, 93% to the grantees, to the actual people who need the help. That's a great number. And I didn't realize that you were all voluntary. So that means you're really spending the time, effort, and energy. So if anybody wants to get involved with a group that needs to help people, that has a and wants to help people, and is giving up 93%, 7%'s got to go through something. It's got to go through administrative costs, stamps, but it's got to do something. But when you're getting 93 cents on the dollar to the cause, that's powerful. So I'm leaving that LinkedIn address up there. I want people to take a moment and connect with you. There's a lot of lessons we learn through here, but just to be able to help somebody, that may be the biggest lesson, if you can reach out and help somebody. My last question for you. This is a hard one, I tell you this, but what question did I not ask you that I should have asked you? What question did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
Yeah, I think. Where does the strength and the will come from? I think.
Okay, let me ask, where does the strength and the will come from? Because you've come through a lot, you've built a lot, you're continuing to grow. Where does the strength and will come from to help people at the level that you're helping them?
Yeah, I I think it's a lot of times people who have been through the most come the farthest. And
Hmm.
in my, yeah, we were just talking about reflecting on what we said in our high school yearbook. And the
Hmm.
quote I put in there, I still believe in, and it's so simple. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Life's given me a lot of lemons, but when you can, there, I recently saw there's this, I think, Japanese tradition where piece of, when a jar or something like that breaks, they put it back together with gold. They put it back together with gold. And
Okay.
so when it's put together, it's even more beautiful and valuable than when it was in its original state. And there's a lot of pain and heartache right now, especially with what people have been through with COVID. And here in the US, we're so fortunate with our vaccines. And I don't want to downplay what people are going through. But if I ever start feeling sorry for myself, which naturally happens, I start focusing on what I'm grateful for. That's so powerful. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself, focus on what you're grateful for. And when you're seeing bad things happen around the world and you're seeing sadness and poverty, think to yourself, what can I do about it?
I like that.
Yeah. What's one thing I can do to improve the situation? I go back to our founder for TS Arms. There's this analogy where there's all these starfish on the beach and they need to be back in the water to survive. You can't fix all those starfish, but you can throw one at a time and put them back in the water. And
Makes that
so
difference to that one. Yeah.
what's the one starfish you can put in the water to help? So I encourage people, you might be in pain right now, you might have a lot going on. Please be grateful on what you have and what can you do to make a difference within the community. And when you focus on that, you heal and you grow, and that's so important.
So the ideal that you have focused on helping people has pulled you through some of the tough times. I had a future guest who was telling me that she realizes people with PTSD, the best way to cure them is to have them help somebody else. She said, and you go through everything else with them, but said that's the fastest way. And it's not like you're saying that for me to pull me through these things to make me be more effective, I just decided to focus on others. That's great. That's great. I cannot begin to tell you how much I enjoyed listening to your TED Talk and learning more about TS Arms and the connections to be a great leader. Is simple. Do more. Step out there. Be more. And don't be afraid to connect. I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Great to be here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for connecting with us here at Touchstone Publishers. Please join our group Essential Leadership Skills and share your leadership knowledge with us all.